case you're wondering as well, yes, I'm from London. So before you guys start saying, why does she sound like that? She sounds weird. Yeah, I'm from London, guys. But I think it's really, really important. Like, more important than a lot of us see. So I come from a community where, being a young Congolese woman, where I didn't really see a lot of the women in the generation, like my mother's generation, going into further education and, you know, really pursuing their kind of like career, etc. And it was actually a fear that I had for a very long time. I saw a lot of women who may have even had the idea that they wanted to go into further education, or they wanted to, I don't know, go into a certain career, but a lot of them gave that up or sacrificed it when they got married or had children. And that was a big, big fear that I actually had. I remember thinking to myself, you know, I don't know if I want to get married, especially not young, because what if now my husband basically expects me to just stay at home and cook and clean? Or what if he doesn't say it initially, but then we get married and then it becomes a different issue? And it now becomes a question of, oh yeah, but I just think that maybe you need to slow down. Because I'm not that person. I love working, I love traveling. I've traveled a lot this year for work, and it's been amazing. So that's something that really, really scared me. But I think in saying that, just because that was the norm for a specific generation, doesn't mean that that's the norm going forward. I have seen so many young African women, especially Congolese women, who go on to further education, who go on to study at, you know, some insane places. I myself went on to study at the University of Cambridge. So I studied there and graduated in 2017. And there weren't a lot of us, but there were a couple other young Congolese women. That is just basically to show and to say that while, yes, stereotypically there might be certain cultural differences or cultural things that we've put on our young women to say, actually, you need to be in the home, you need to be cooking, you need to be cleaning, I think it's changing and it's shifting. And I think it's really important that we allow, like I said, the generations to come to understand that. Yes, it doesn't matter if you want to be a stay-at-home mom and you want to stay at home, absolutely fine. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for years, and that was amazing. It was incredible having my mum there, but also giving young Congolese women the option to say, actually, I might not want to necessarily do that, but I want to go and do something else, and saying that is okay for them to do so. So I think it's highly important, just to kind of go back to what you were saying, but highly important that women are educated, but it's also not the be-all, end-all, and women should not, again, we shouldn't be limited or boxed in. It's not one or the other. If a woman wants to stay at home and look after her kids, give her the space to do so. It is her prerogative, it's her choice. But also give women the option and the choice to go and be educated into further education and to excel as far and as wide as they want to be, or to go.
I think that having women in education is extremely important, because for years, and especially in the past, we've had a lot of women who find themselves in predicaments where they're completely reliant on one person for the entire livelihood, because they don't have any other option than to rely on a man for example, financially, socially, spiritually, in every single aspect. So I think giving women the option to be educated and expand their horizons, give them the opportunity to, one, expand on their skills, and also kind of expand on, because I feel a lot of people actually live in ignorance because they're not really aware of what they're around and surrounded by, and the opportunities that they could possibly have just based on their education alone. And I feel that excluding such a huge part of the population, for example, in South Africa, 51% of the population is actually women. So there's more women in the world, more women in South Africa specifically, than there is men. So when you exclude such a huge part of the population from having the opportunity to be educated, to have something that they can make themselves credible, to basically have some sort of a platform where they can expand on opportunities and things like that, is that you have such a large population of people who are not contributing to the economy, first of all. Because when you have educated people who are working in the workforce and they're able to go into jobs, for example, be lawyers, be teachers and CEOs, they're part of the conversation. And when you take that opportunity away from them, is you're removing the opportunity for potentially having better social services, better work productivity, and having, it's actually even been proven that when you have educated women, you're most likely to have educated children, because educated children, children tend to model their mothers and their fathers. So when you find yourself in a household where you have a woman that is educated, you're most likely to be inspired to, you know what, I want to be an educated person as well. And this is beneficial. In the short term, a lot of the times you find that men can be intimidated by an educated woman. In fact, it's actually quite funny. A lot of people say they want an educated woman until it's time to be with an educated woman. You know, people get intimidated.
There you go.
And so I think it's really important that instead of having to be fearful of a woman who is knowledgeable of her worth, who's knowledgeable of the things that she can take advantage of, it's better to, you know what, I can be with this person. There's unity in this strength in unity. You know, it's better that as a man and a woman we can benefit each other based on what we know than for you to exclude somebody simply because they're a woman and you feel like you need to be the head. So I think it's extremely important that women be educated. And when we speak about education, it does not necessarily mean that you have to be a lawyer, a teacher, a professor, an engineer. You could be so talented with the work of your hands. All you need to do is have some sort of foundation that gives you that credibility that you can put your market out there. You don't have to be a teacher, you don't have to be a lawyer. You just have to make sure that what you want to do is exactly what will make you happy and that you can be self-sufficient. I think that's why we really need to start promoting that kind of development.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this is an important one if we all speak on it. Awesome. All right, so to kind of piggyback off some of the things you really said, Justine, actually, I believe it's very important for women to be educated. Something that, there's a study that's been done by even like through microfinancing, how women had the highest percentage of even being able to pay off their loans back. And through that, they've been able to also bring up their families out of poverty. So, at least speaking of the Congo, a lot of history has been that women have been the working hands, right? They've been using their skills. And I think by recognizing that and acknowledging that in women, I think that's the important thing, like acknowledging that a woman can work, that acknowledging a woman can go higher up into education, that it empowers them, and it also not only empowers them, but through that empowerment, it also brings up the family that they have. It brings up that community that they have, and I think that's why it's very important for women to be educated, whether it's in the skill or whether it's in higher education as far as the knowledge or being a lawyer or doctor. I think it does bring up your society as well.
I think education is important period. It doesn't matter if it's a girl or boy. But I feel like for women specifically, if we have more women educated countries in Africa specifically won't be in the places they are right now. And I think a lot of these issues has to do with women, they're not educated, or a small percentage of them are educated, but then also they're being pushed back by the men who are more in power and also want to keep their power and things like that. So I feel like education in general, it's important, but for women specifically, it will take us so far, it will take our countries far if women were in power and they were also educated and know exactly what they're doing.
I think education, as she mentioned, is very important. You know, most of the African countries are in state building right now, so we have a fresh start to include women more. From my personal experience, I come from a line where women are not educated. From a small town, it's different when you live in a rural area compared when you live in a city or the capital of the state, where women have more access to schools and just getting there to school safely compared to rural areas. For me, from my experience, my mom, she only has a 4th grade education, and like for me right now, pursuing the master's, like our dialogue is so different. But I respect where she comes from, like family structure and how she runs the house, and I see that difference. But you know, when I was younger, I was getting in conflict with her. But right now, it's like you get into peace with that relationship. Like you accept their role, who they are, also. So yes, there are women who are not educated, but you know, we have to be all on the same page, and creating that unity, as you said, within the women, and you know, you excel from there, and you know, creating another generation. Like yes, you can pursue higher education, even if you cannot access how you build up, you know, a network of women. Like, you know, for me, if like there's I'm not good at chemistry, my grandma will call up some lady, her daughter's really good at chemistry, and then I'll get a tutor. So that kind of connection of helping to build each other, and getting on the same page of, yes, we want to push women more into education, and not only like a high school or just bachelor, but like higher and graduate school also. So.
Thank you so much. So we've touched a little bit on the ways in which women are boxed into these narratives and into this expectation of marriage. So I'd like to talk a little bit about why marriage is the epitome of success for women, and in particular why we think that that's valued above education and what we can do to sort of break free of that limitation.
We were actually having this conversation yesterday, I think, in the car. And one of the things that I actually mentioned was that I don't even think it's just within specific cultures, whether it be the Congolese community, whether it be whatever African country. I don't actually even think that it's just that. I think it goes as far as even just society itself. I feel as though a lot of people view, you know, if you get to this place of marriage, that means that you are worthy. That means that someone deemed you to be worthy because they asked you to marry them. That means that, you know, somehow you've reached a pinnacle of responsibility now because you're married. And what I would say, the first person to say, I am somebody that 100% wants to get married. I value the space. I don't just call it an institution personally because I see marriage as a sacred union between people before God. That's me personally. Everyone will have their own opinion, but I value marriage. So when I'm saying this, it's not coming from a negative place, but it's just from what I've seen, from the conversations that people have as though marriage is the only thing that you should aspire to. And I think it's a very dangerous mentality to have. You know, again, it's okay for you to say you want to get married, but I feel as though within certain communities, because once upon a time, marriage used to often be, you know, an elevation of maybe your financial situation. So for a lot of people, marriage was actually deemed as, oh great, my daughter's getting married, now she's gonna have access to finances and to money, right? That is what it was, and we're having a big debate and a big discussion yesterday over dinner about things like dowry and all that stuff, but that's a conversation for us. We're not gonna go revisit that because it was heated yesterday. It was heated. But ultimately, you know, that's where I think that value came from. This whole idea that marriage was deemed as this thing that's like either for, you know, now you're breaking out of financial poverty, you're breaking out of a certain, you know, dire situation, or it's just a way for people to add value and to say, oh, you must be a responsible person. It's even so bad. I remember I was having a conversation with my pastor, and he basically was saying how he used to, so he's a speaker as well, so he's a businessman, he's a speaker, he goes around and does talks all over the world as well. And he was saying how before he got married, when he would go and do talks, they wouldn't pay him. They would basically say every time he went to go and do a talk, they'll give him jollof rice and send him on his way. That was his form of payment, jollof rice, right? Just in case anyone doesn't know, it's like basically tomato, like mixed in with rice. I'm sure you'll find out today. I'm sure they have some. But ultimately, it was like they didn't respect him. Then the moment that he actually got married and had a kid, it all changed. The dynamic shifted. So what does that even say about the mentality that we have as individuals? It's almost as though we're saying like, now because you are married, you can now be valued higher. And I think it's all, again, is mindset. It's about having those conversations, especially with our, you know, younger sisters, our younger siblings, our cousins, our, you know, friends around us. They're little brothers and sisters, and expressing and explaining to them that, listen, yes, marriage is a beautiful thing. Yes, feel free if you want to be married, aspire for it. Go, do it. But don't let it be the be-all, end-all. Don't now say that just because the only time I'll become a person of value is when I get married. Or people or the women in my workplace will respect me more because I am married. Because you might have that little club of women in your space or whatever that are married and they have their own conversations and you're there like, oh damn, like, whoa. I'm seeing a lot of, I'm getting to that age, guys, a lot of people are getting married, right? And so to some, if I wasn't strong within myself as an individual, it might make me then feel like, oh no, my man needs to hurry up and put a ring on this because they're all getting married. But it's important for us to have that mentality of, it's okay to even want to be single for the rest of your life. It's okay. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't have to be the be-all, end-all, but again, it's conversation, it's education, it's letting people know that. And also, one thing I would say as well is don't kill yourself trying to tell maybe your parents or the older generation what you believe. The only reason that I say this is this, because a lot of people try and like get into a lot of conflict with their family members who are older, who are already set in their ways, who already have their own cultural beliefs and whatever it is that they want to believe in about marriage, because we all know it, a lot of African people, you finish education, now where's your husband? These times in school they didn't want you to talk to any boys, but then as soon as you're done, all of a sudden, where is your husband? We want grandbabies, we want children. It becomes that conversation, right? But don't come and kill yourself trying to, tell them like, no, but this is okay. Like, because they have their own perspective and their own mentality because of how they grew up. Respect it, love them as they are, and just say, you know what, Mom, Dad, I'm gonna do things my own way. Sometimes we have to do that, and we have to be brave enough to do that, because a lot of us are still afraid of our parents, like, we have to, sometimes be brave enough just to say, Mom, Dad, I respect how you guys did it. I know that you guys want me to get married, but you know what, Mom, Dad, I'm gonna do it in my time because I wanna focus on my career first. I wanna focus on education. They will keep pushing your buttons, yes, but you as an individual will still do what you need to do. So yeah, don't make it the be all end all, please.
I think I agree with absolutely everything that she just said, actually. I think one of the reasons why we have women kind of being pushed towards the idea that you have to get married, that's the be-all, end-all, and basically you cannot solidify your success if you're not a married woman, is because of how also we were raised. A lot of the times, just like you said, like in the older generations, they had a different perspective on the way they were thinking. For example, like our parents were probably married at like 20 years old, whereas we're in our early 20s and we're here trying to create things for ourselves. So it all boils down to normality and how it was normalized. For example, like when you're growing up, you're going to school, you're told focus on school, no boyfriends, no kind of things like that. And as soon as you graduate, your graduation day again, where's your husband? But years before you're telling me to focus on my school. Whereas the question should shift to, what is your next path from here? Like, what job opportunities have you applied for? What do you plan on building? So I think that the focus really needs to be pushed on what having women build for themselves, instead of having them so focused on solidifying their graduates. I feel like they even started teaching education like a university degree as, it's almost kind of like a green card for you to now get married. It's not really for you to actually develop yourself, but more so like, okay, now you have the right to go and get married. So why is it that you're investing so much in your education if you don't really want me to develop myself? So I think we need to start teaching these things. Now that we're growing older, we need to start teaching to our children and make it a normal thing for us, that it's okay to take some time to yourself, to build your records, to build on your career, and focus on the things that are important for you. Because at the end of the day, nobody's gonna write for you like you can. So I think it's really important that we normalize things such as being educated, not just being educated, but just creating something for yourself, being self-sufficient as women, just being self-sufficient and being able to say that I can do this for myself. Because you can find that a woman has a PhD, she has a doctorate, but as long as she does not have a husband, they cannot really say that she's truly a successful woman. It even goes down to American history, where American women, like married women, were actually given the right to vote before single women. So it goes back to like status. They say, as a married woman, you have a better status as a single woman. So I think it kind of, with the perspective that when you're a housewife or when you're a wife, that you have more responsibilities, therefore you're much more likely to be, logical kind of things like that, which is a very misplaced narrative to put. It's a very dangerous idea to put on people, because women have their own natural nature. I think it's a beautiful thing, and there's something that we have to contribute to the table. And just like confining them to marriage and having to confine them to being married to a man to solidify what they can contribute to the table is really just taking away from all the progress that we can actually make. So I think we really need to change that conversation.
I would have to say that it also comes from a society of the what's next, right? So you've achieved, you've gone through this one first step, so what's next? I think as a society, we don't really take the time to slow down and just be able to enjoy what is now, what's happening right now, and just being able to acknowledge that and really just live in that. So I think when it comes to women and education, or even with marriage, it's like, all right, you have your education, what's next? Why aren't you married yet, right? So I think that's also something that needs to change in us, of being able to just be like, all right, well, because when you get married, it's like, okay, so where are the children? And then after the first child, it's like, where's your next child, right? So it's like, let's slow down, learning how to have that open mind of like just being able to enjoy what's now and what are you achieving right now, and being able to have those conversations.
I feel like there's more pressure coming from society compared to family. That's from my experience. My family don't ask me, hey, when you're getting married, who you dating, why are you single, things like that. They don't get it. They just want to make sure I'm doing what I love to do, which is like going to school, being a student, and graduating and getting a nice paying job. And I feel like I just graduated from DU actually just a few months ago with my master's. I'm 23 years old and I have a nice paying job. So, and then working in the criminal justice system in America specifically is really hard because one, you're black, and then you're working with all these black people that are doing serious crimes, and then you're working with white people who are like doing some serious crime, but somehow they're not being convicted and so then you go home and you're like, oh my gosh, I did all these crimes and stuff. So you're like exhausted, depressed, and all these things. And then like there's like group of friends who are Africans that are putting that pressure, like, oh, you're 23 now, you're gonna be 24, you're gonna be 30, with no husband, with nothing. And I'm like, well, I have a job that I really love. And I feel like if I had a boyfriend or a husband right now, I feel like I won't like them as much as I like what I'm doing. Because that's me. Because I love what I'm doing. I always wanted to help people, and I feel like I'm in that place where I'm doing what I love. So I feel like getting that pressure from African communities specifically, it's so much high. Like, it's like all these young people getting married, and then next thing you know, someone's asking, why aren't you getting married? Where I work, it's all white people. I tell you, there's 800 contractors, and there's like 5 of us black. And I'm like the only black female in that agency. We're all contractors, so we work on our own way. And we only see each other during trainings and things like that. And every time I talk to white folks, like I'm telling them things like, in 10 years, I want to go back to school and get a law degree or do something. After social work. But let me talk about that to the African community. If they're like, come on. you gotta put the pen down, do something else, get married, do this. It's like, what if I don't want to get married? Like, maybe I just want to work for the rest of my life. I want to help out the people out there. I have siblings on the last tree. So I have siblings that are having kids, and I want to take care of those kids. We got one. So it's like they don't consider anything that
to get to know yourself first. That's not itself.
No, this is our family. This is your mom grew up, this is your sisters grew up. You gotta go with it. It's like, for me personally, I just listen. Like when these people say, contact me out. That's how Congolese. Tomorrow I'm back to my work. That's pretty much
From my experience so far, in my second year for my undergrad studies, the only colored people were like, you know, I was an international student before that, but the higher ranks, and I went to the upper classes, it was only African students and not African Americans, and I saw that massive gap. And me and my friends, like from Ethiopia, from Ghana, were just sitting there, we were studying for an exam, and it was our last semester, we were doing our final project, and we were like, okay, like, who has a boyfriend, who doesn't? We're just like, you know, we joke around about it all the time, like, you know, our parents are up our head, and that's when we have that space and that time we vent to each other and like problem solve. Like, hi, I tried this with my mom, or I tried this with my dad. So it's like back and forth, that kind of creating a support system. And I feel like with our family and our society, you just have to show them. Because when you have that conflict, that talking, it's just a waste of your own energy, and you're just like, and then your parents worry about you a lot. You know, and just show them, you just have to show them. And, you know, if, for me, like showing them me going to graduate school, my parents are like undergrad, as you said, it's like a green card. You're like, see, our daughter's educated and she can do all this, blah, blah, blah. At the same time, when I push to higher education, my parents are like, oh, I think it's a bit risky. You're gonna limit yourself so much with like what kind of man are you gonna attract? You know what I mean? So having that conversation, and it did happen to me, like somebody who's like 40 years old, like proposed, and I'm like, my mom was like, you have to think about it. I'm like, no, I There's no conversation, you know? So you have that, you know, family conversation and you get really heated, but sometimes you just hold yourself because you have to understand the other side also, you know? And as I said, just creating this space and you just have to show them the whole time. And sometimes, you know, when I show them,
Congolese, you hear what you put, you need to.
my dad's like, oh, well, Yasmina's doing this, and then my brother would get a little bit heated. You know, sometimes African parents, they compare you to the other sibling. And I was like, oh, no problem, my dad's gonna say that, you know, like compare me to my brother, because my younger brother, I'm always competing with him all the time, because he's the guy, you know, he was like the older guy and everything, and everybody thinks that he's older than me. I'm like, oh, I'm older. And then I just prove them. So as I give advice to anybody, just show them. You just have to work in silence and just show them at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that that's an interesting point that you bring up, and I just want to bring up the fact that there's this idea of almost becoming overqualified for marriage. You know, when at a point when a man just won't want to marry you because you're overqualified, you have too many degrees, your job is too good, and all of that, and they're essentially competing with you.
I also want to mention, my aunt is a lawyer, and her husband is like an entrepreneur, and he runs his own businesses, and he was going through a really, really hard time. Like, he was barely making money, and he was refusing for her to go and practice law. And like, she has the degree and she has like 3 girls, and you know what I mean, she still have my other aunts, she can, you know, other people can babysit and your mom can babysit and all that stuff. And me and my mom are having this conversation. They were really, really on the edge. And I talked to my aunt and I was like, you can still help him. Okay, if you're going through this financial situation for 6 months to a year, you can work for that and then see how it goes. And she did. And it's so funny, as I say, like, you have to just show them, because, you know, she graduated, she got married, and, you know, her law degree of like 5 years just chilling under her pillow, you know? And when you see that, you get so discouraged of like, should I go and pursue higher education? But at that time, you know, a lot of people in our family were talking to him, and he was so stubborn. He was like, no, I'm not gonna let my wife, you know, go to work and do this. People think that I'm really like, I can't support my family. So for him, it's like a gender also, like he's suffering from it also. So both parties are suffering at this point. So when she started going, you know, to work and to the firm, making good money, and he's like, okay, like we can do this, you know, like it doesn't have to be like all the burden on him. You know, when you say marriage, I see it as like helping and lifting each other.
Sorry, can I just jump in there just to say, again, this is a really interesting conversation that we had yesterday, but I think, again, that goes down to 2 main things. So, obviously, ego, which is natural for a man, whether we like to admit or not, men and women, we are different, okay?
Sure.
Whether we like to say it or not, we are different, and that's okay. We're equal, but different. That's what I always say. Men, definitely, their ego is a big thing. That's why men normally, when you ask them what do they want, they normally say respect first, whereas a woman might say love. But for a man, it's respect, because their ego is a big thing. But secondly, it also, and I was talking about this yesterday, it's about the character of that individual. So one of the main things is understanding that individual, you know, whatever it is that they then go on to say that might be negative is just being amplified. They were always that person. So I really call women to have real conversations with your partners, even before you decide to get married. So I'm a woman who, you know, I do what I do. I go around the world, I travel, I speak, I do a lot. And I have a partner who I've been with for over 3 years now. And we have to have honest conversations, because we know that we want to get married. But I genuinely have to be like, but how would you feel if, for example, I had to go and live in the States for 3 months? Or if I'm now making more money than you. He makes good money, but because I'm self-employed and the limitations for what I do are unlimited. There are no limitations even to what I do. So one day I could be making hundreds and thousands of pounds every single, you know, month. And we have to have those real conversations, but his character is why I stay with him. Because I'm sorry, but I'm not willing to allow myself to be, again, limited and boxed in because of an expectation that someone else has. Because what then happens is, we get married and then I start to resent you. And I don't want that. I've seen it too many times where women will get married and they're in unhappy marriages, miserable. because they had so much going for them, but because they decided to now get married and not have those initial conversations, they now get into the marriage and their husband's telling them, you can't go and use your degree, you can't go and do this, can't go and do that. And they're like, but why? So I know that sometimes people change, and I know that you can't always know 100% what's going to happen in marriage, but just to anyone who's even thinking about getting married, have those conversations before. Because the worst thing you can do is that you both have two different expectations, because he might have had that expectation because that's how he was raised. And that's okay for him. He might go out there and leave you and find another woman who just wants to stay at home and cook and clean all day. And that's okay. Again, I never ever put down a woman if that's what she wants to do. That is a job within itself. Raising children is a job in itself. So if that's what she wants, no problem. But have those conversations and be honest. And women especially, because sometimes we make ourselves smaller in order for us to make the man feel better. No, be honest with him and say, listen, honey, I know that when we get married, because I had to have this conversation with my partner a couple of weeks ago as well. I said, when we get married, one of the things that I have worried for a long time is that now I'll have to slow down. I don't want to slow down. I want to keep going as fast and as far as I can go, as much God has planned for me. And we had to have that conversation. It's like, listen, you don't have to slow down. We can find options. Yes, of course, we don't want our nannies to raise our children, but there are options. We can have nannies. We can have family members looking after them. We can do this, we can do that. But we have to have that conversation so that when we get married, no one can now tell me and say, no, you need to go and sit at home. No, but you knew the woman that I was before you married me. So allow the man to know who you are before you marry them. Don't pretend to be someone just because you're trying to please them in your relationship. Please have those conversations.
Yeah, I agree absolutely with everything you said. I think going back to what you said about a woman being a lawyer, I remember one of the very first times I had a conversation with a guy telling him that I want to be a lawyer. And the very first thing that came out of his mouth, he's like, well, your husband's still going to lay down the law in the house. And I was like, okay, I don't really know what that has to do with anything, because career-wise and who I am as a person, these are two different things. It just happens that I want to use my specific skills and what I'm being educated in to work in a specific field. I think also one of the reasons why they're so afraid you become almost overqualified to become a wife at this point is because they're afraid of a woman who's educated because she has options. You know, people, sometimes men want a woman to be so reliant on him that no matter what he does, she's going to have to endure because she's so reliant on him. And that's exactly what's been happening in African households for the most part, is that women are told you have to endure, you have to, like, how do you say this in English? To support, there we go. You have to take it. You gotta endure, like, abusive, like they would discourage a woman who's living through abusive marriages to just stay just in the sake of having a successful marriage, in comparison to leaving a failed marriage and being alive. Because what you have is women going back to their households, back to their father's house in a dead, like literally dead bodies, in comparison to just going back home alive and having a failed marriage. Because you're so afraid of what other people are going to say. And so what you have is, like she said, women diminishing themselves and having to slow it. And they almost treat marriage like a cemetery for talents and skills. It's like as soon as they get married, you're like, you know what? I don't have to do the same because my husband says I need to slow down, so I'm going to slow down. So every single potential that they had to possibly contribute to the communities, to their families, to take out their families from financial situations, they put that on the husband, and they just basically leave that. It's almost like they're gone, like they never had anything to offer in the first place. And I think that's exactly why they get so intimidated when you have educated women wanting to do better, wanting to be better, wanting to contribute in some way, shape, or form. So that's why I really think it's really important that we really teach, not even ourselves, but our children, our communities, our friends. We tell them, you know what, you need to have an option for yourself before you try to have somebody choose you, because it's really important that you sustain yourself, so that if anything turns left, you know that I'll be okay. You know, it's important that at the end of the day, you're okay. You know, and I think also one of the worst things, we were actually having a discussion about this yesterday, is one of the times men especially they feel so empowered to do whatever they want, boiling back down to dowries. Somebody said this actually yesterday, that if I pay a dowry of a certain amount of money, then I'm allowed to slap you know, something along those lines. You know, so sometimes they feel empowered to do these things because of that financial obligation that they put on you. So I think that it's really important that parents especially, we need to stop treating certain like these type of traditions as a scapegoat to have our family come out of its financial situation, because I have the potential to take my family out of that situation. Do you just, like believe in me that I'm capable of doing that? So I think as long as we continue to change that narrative for women, it's going to be literally, women are going to survive more. We're going to be able to get out of these abusive situations, and we're able to, like contribute to our communities, our countries, and we can do so much more together.
Thank you so much. So I want to ask just one final question, and that is, how can we ensure that more and more women are becoming educated and going into positions of power, leadership positions within their workplace? If you take just 1 minute each to touch on that.
I think having conferences like this and dialogue and bringing women, middle schoolers, high schoolers, just inspiring, creating that space like you could be more, you can thrive more. There's no limit, because our culture or our society always limits us, and it would be like a venture for these girls, like, yes, I can go beyond, above and beyond, and creating that dialogue, so and so, and went and talked, and she did this on YouTube, and she went and talked here, she went to that country, like even traveling as a woman. Your parents are like, why are you going? Like for me, I traveled, why are you going there? I'm like, I need to go to this conference. Well, you can have it here too, right? I'm like, no, it's much more important if I go there, because you meet different people. Yes, I can stay in Denver and have a conference here, but if I go and have another African conference in DC or New York or in Congo or South Africa or any African, the dialogue is different, the people are different, and the issues are the same, but it's just like how you meet people and just being more open, not only to your community, but for the rest of the world.
It's hard for women to ask a question.
I would say I wish there was something like a program that works with African kids. Honestly, I'm just going to be based on African kids, because a lot of us come here, our parents are telling us go to school. Meanwhile, English is not even our first language. So for me specifically, English is my fourth language. And I don't even
True.
So I speak 3 other languages. So when I got here, I had no English in my mouth. So I was going to school, being around all these kids. And the first school I went to here in Colorado, it was super wide. They had no type of organization, no programs I worked with, like foreign students. So it was really difficult. But somehow it actually helped me too, because I was like, okay, you know what, I'm going to give myself this year, I got to learn English so I can interact with the other kids and stuff. But if we had things, organizational programs that someone even started, where we have girls that are already in college, mentoring those that are in middle school or high school and things like that, that will help a lot, because I had a mentor. She was white. She was this white woman that always told me, like, you have to go for it, you have to go for it. So she even encouraged me to go to grad school. Like right when I was in my last year of undergrad, she was like, okay, I looked into these programs and she's interested in.
Ramses have an after school program.
And then I happened to come with you and finish and got a job. So I feel like having that someone in your life that's not a family member that's talking to you, it's more motivating than in your family, because we're going home to our family. Like, all they're asking is high school. Your report card comes home, why did you get an F here? And it's like, I'm sitting in a classroom with English speaking students, like, what are you expecting from me? I'm trying my best here, and especially African parents, they don't understand that. Somehow you're just not working hard, and they don't even think about the fact that English is not your first language. You have all these things going on, like you have other activities you're doing at school or outside of school, things like that, they don't understand. So having a mentor or a program where we can bring little kids from high school all the way down and partner them up with someone who's already in college, already graduated, to mentor them, I feel like that's going to be really fun. And then doing, like she said, doing things like this, or traveling and speaking to young women across the globe, that would be helpful.
So I think it's very important what you talked about, especially being the cultural barrier and language barrier in a lot of communities, especially refugee or immigrant communities. And part with that being said is, not only should we as the people even here in this panel, or as you as the audience, taking up that power of creating those programs or being the first. Program doesn't even have to be created. You could just walk into a school and volunteer, read to a child in kindergarten, or whatever it is. There's a lot of opportunities that are out there to do that. But I think the other side of the coin too is with our parents. Something that I've experienced in volunteering with refugee organizations is that English is not their first language either, right? So in understanding the system that's here as well is very different from the system that's back home. So what kind of resources do we provide for them as well, so that they know how they can empower their children and how they can also empower themselves? Because something that I've seen too is that a lot of kids who have to translate for their parents, there's also a loss of respect in that aspect, right? So, because the parents don't know, so you don't know what the kid could be saying, or it's also a lot of, for a kid to have to take. So I think that, I think for all of us who are in positions where we can provide those kind of opportunities, whether it's a conference, whether it's, like I said, going to a school or going to an organization and volunteering with immigrant populations, do that. Take a step out of your comfort zone and speak to someone that you've never spoken to before. See someone who doesn't look like you and provide that mentorship for them. And I think with the word power, it also all depends on what that means, right? Power is not just I'm a political person, I'm a congressperson. Power can be also in the home. Power can be if I'm an electrician, I'm a plumber, right? There's power in all of that as well, so.
I agree completely. I think often we don't even give networking enough credit because just speaking to people, I feel even like platforms like So, it was created by a young Black woman, you know, so having conversations like this already is like a starting point for us to continue to like enlighten first people that, you know, there's options out there that you could do better, that you don't have to be conformed to what society expects you to do. And then apart from that, I feel like sometimes we give too much credit to other people for what we're doing or what we should do. I think it really also boils down to the individual. I think Aiko Simmons, I believe that's how you pronounce her name, she recently said, we're not all in a position of power, but we're all in our own positions of power. So you have the power to create something for yourself. You have the power to go and reach out to other people. You have the power to surround yourself by like-minded people who are able to encourage you and, you know, like kind of promote a certain idea, because even the Bible talks about bad company corrupts good character. So in reverse, good company could encourage good character, you know, in that sense. So I think it's really important that you surround yourself by people who will motivate you and inspire you to do better, to always push yourself beyond your limit. I think having friends like Limer and like my few friends who really push me to really want to do better, to even be on panels like this, it's really inspiring. So I think it really starts with ourselves, especially as women. You know, as women, we're always expected to be catty and attitude towards each other. That's it. Even men see that, they're like, oh, women don't even love each other. And I think that's really, it boils down to ourselves, especially as women. The moment we start encouraging each other, loving each other, and supporting each other genuinely, so much can change within our community. And I believe once you're solid within as a community, an individual as well as in the community, it could change so much for your environment. So I think that's really important, that we really encourage each other, that we support each other, that we create things for ourselves, and therefore, like you said in the beginning, it has that ripple effect into everything else. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Hello? Oh, yeah, is that working? Okay, good. Okay. Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that, you know, all these incredible women have said on this panel. First thing, just to kind of say to what you were saying, one of the guys that's going to be on another panel, I think I don't know if he's here, Ramses. Anyway, is he not coming anymore? Oh, listen, he's sick. Okay, well, find out about Ramses, because just the other day we were having a conversation and he said that he runs an organization specifically on that. So focused on giving people, especially young people who've just come over to America, maybe first generation, oh, is that what it's called? Second chance of hope?
Second chance of hope.
There we go, second chance of hope. And they basically teach them things like English, French, etc. because of the language barrier. So I would say speak to them. The second thing I wanted to say to what you actually reading is was, you know, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before about, you know, taking that responsibility. If you know that this is an issue and it's something because clearly you were passionate about it when you spoke, then girl, sister, girl, it might be you that needs to do it. You might be that individual that needs to stand up and say, I am going to start the biggest organization in Denver, Colorado, where all young people of African descent from the diaspora, etc., can come to a safe space, and we train up mentors, we send them out and they mentor, they go from college to college, as you guys will call it here, or from school to school, and to teach these people to say, listen, we know it's hard, we know you've come from a different country, but to give them that second chance of hope or whatever it is, that might be your burden. And I think just that's exactly what I'll kind of end it with, that for us to take responsibility and to really look within at the things that we are infuriated about, passionate about, the things that really, really, might anger us or stress us out, and know that that is there for a reason. For example, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not necessarily as concerned about animals being killed for their fur. I'm so sorry, that's just not my burden. I know it's bad, I know that we shouldn't do it, I don't want anyone to come and throw tomatoes at me. But there's some people who genuinely, that's like something that they are deeply infuriated about. That's their burden, that's their responsibility. Now do something about it. We can sit here and talk about all the issues under the sun and all the issues of the planet. I know for me, there's a lot of, especially young black women, who feel like they don't have a voice, who feel like they can't go to places like the University of Cambridge, where I had people that would message me and say, I didn't even think it was possible for black women to go to places like that. There are so many people who are stuck in bondage and boundary. That's my burden. So I use my platform and I do what I need to do in order to try and break people out of that. Now you have to see what is your burden and make sure you do something about it. So I think that's how we encourage people to go into education, to push them higher, figure out what it is that we need to do within ourselves in order to, make that ripple effect in our communities.
Thank you. So I'd like to close just by stating that I think a key theme that we've discussed today is the fact that empowered women empower their societies and empower their communities. So the purpose of empowering women is not purely just a feminist and a female issue, it's an issue for society overall, because when we are empowered, we will empower others. And in terms of what Lamira was saying earlier about not leaving this room and just leaving this conversation in here and going on with our lives, maybe we will continue and begin that mentorship program, as you mentioned and as Eunice mentioned. So thank you so much for all your eloquence and all the points that you brought up, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.